Welcome back to the Whispering Tome. If you are new here, this is a place for stories that history forgot to tell, not the tales of emperors and conquests that fill the textbooks, but the quieter stories, the human stories, the ones that happened in the spaces between the great events. You are listening to Episode 5 of the Silk Road, a merchant's silent epic. The final episode. Tahir has walked a road that most people cannot imagine. He has crossed the Taklamakan desert twice. He has seen the wonders of China. He has climbed the roof of the world and come down the other side. He has watched a man die and carried that weight with him. And now he stands in Samarkand, the city he has dreamed of since his father first spoke the name, the destination that has pulled him forward through every moment of fear and exhaustion, the place where everything he has suffered will finally mean something. Or will it? Because reaching your destination is only half the story. What you do when you get there, what you choose to become, how you carry forward everything you have learned. That is the other half. Tahir has proven he can survive the road. Now he must prove he can do something harder. He must prove he can go home. And he must decide what kind of man will walk through his father's door when he finally returns. This is the end of the journey. Let us see how it unfolds.
Samarkand in the 13th century was not like other cities. It was not simply a place where people lived and worked and died. It was an idea made manifest, a crossroads of civilizations, a meeting point for every culture, every faith, every art form that the Silk Road had ever touched. Walk through its streets and you would hear a dozen languages in as many minutes. Persian and Arabic, Chinese and Turkic, Sanskrit and Greek, the tongues of empires living and dead, all mixing together in a constant murmur of commerce and conversation. Look up and you would see architecture that defied easy description. Domes covered in tiles of blue and turquoise and azure, catching the sunlight and throwing it back in shades that seemed to come from another world. Minarets rising like fingers pointing toward heaven. Madrasas where scholars debated philosophy and astronomy and medicine. Palaces where rulers held court over empires that stretched for thousands of miles. And underneath it all, the beating heart that kept the city alive. The bazaars. Tahir had seen markets before. He had grown up in the bazaars of Kashgar, which he had once thought were impressive. He had traded in the markets of Dunhuang, which had seemed like a revelation. But the bazaars of Samarkand were something else entirely. They were not markets, they were worlds. Tahir entered the Great Bazaar on his second morning in the city. He had spent his first day resting at the caravanserai, recovering from the journey, letting his body remember what it felt like to be warm and safe and fed. He had slept for 14 hours straight, and even then, he had woken feeling like he could sleep for 14 more. But there was work to be done, silk to sell, porcelain to unload, the purpose of 8 months of suffering to fulfill. The bazaar stretched before him like a city within a city. Covered passages led into covered passages, branching and merging and splitting again. Stalls lined both sides, piled high with goods from every corner of the known world. Silk from China, spices from India, furs from the northern steppes, glass from Persia, leather from Arabia, gems from Ceylon, carpets from a dozen different traditions. And people, so many people, merchants and buyers, servants and porters, guards and officials, beggars and princes, all of them moving through the covered passages like blood through veins, keeping the great organism of commerce alive. Tahir moved slowly, taking it all in, trying to understand the rhythm of the place, the flow of traffic, the location of different goods, the subtle signals that indicated where the wealthy buyers gathered and where the bargain hunters lurked. He had learned, in Dunhuang, that patience was essential, that rushing into deals was a sign of desperation, that the best prices came to those who understood the market before they tried to sell to it. So he watched, he listened, he learned. And on the third day, he began to sell. The silk went first. This was intentional. Silk was his most valuable cargo and also the most competitive market. Every caravan from the east carried silk. The supply was constant. The buyers knew they had options. But Tahir had an advantage. he had not fully appreciated until now. His silk was exceptional. In Dunhuang, he had bought carefully. He had listened to Yusuf's advice about quality. He had spent extra to get the finest grades, the most intricate patterns, the most vibrant colors. At the time, he had worried that he was overspending, that the extra quality would not justify the extra cost. He had been wrong. In Samarkand, quality was everything. The wealthy buyers, the court officials, the merchants who supplied the European markets, they did not want adequate silk. They wanted the best, and they were willing to pay for it. Tahir's first sale set the tone. A Persian merchant named Bahram, who supplied the courts of the Abbasid remnant, examined Tahir's finest bolt of silk. Deep purple, shot through with gold thread, so fine that it seemed to glow from within. Bahram ran the fabric through his fingers, held it up to the light, examined the weave with a jeweler's loop. Then he named a price. Tahir almost laughed. The price was higher than he had hoped, higher than he had dreamed. For a single bolt of silk, Bahram was offering more than Tahir had paid for 5 bolts in Dunhuang. He did not laugh. He had learned better than that. Instead, he frowned slightly, as if the price were merely adequate, as if he had other offers to consider. They negotiated for an hour. Tea was served 3 times. The final price was 15% higher than Bahram's opening offer. When the deal was complete and the silk changed hands, Tahir walked out of the stall feeling lightheaded. He had just made more profit on a single transaction than his father made in a year. The journey was beginning to pay off. The sales continued over the following days. The remaining silk went to a consortium of Armenian merchants who were building a shipment for Constantinople. The porcelain went to a local collector who specialized in Chinese ceramics. The tea went to a Mongol official who had developed a taste for the bitter drink during his posting in China. Each transaction brought its own challenges, its own negotiations, its own small victories and minor disappointments. Tahir won some and lost some, as every merchant does. But overall, his results exceeded his most optimistic projections. By the end of the second week, his cargo was gone. Every bolt of silk, every piece of porcelain, every brick of tea, all converted into coin, stored safely in the vaults of a reputable money changer. He counted it 3 times to make sure. The total was staggering. If he returned to Kashgar with even half of this amount, his family would be secure for years. The debts would be paid. The business would be saved. His father could stop worrying about creditors and start planning for the future. Tahir sat alone in his room at the caravanserai, staring at the letter of credit that represented his fortune. 8 months ago, he had been a boy who had never left his hometown. Nervous, uncertain, soft. Now he was a man with enough wealth to change his family's future. The journey had been worth it. And yet something felt incomplete. The choice came on his final day in Samarkand. Tahir was walking through the bazaar one last time, saying goodbye to the merchants he had dealt with, when he heard a commotion near the silk quarter. A crowd had gathered around a stall. Voices were raised. Someone was crying. He pushed through the crowd to see what was happening. At the center of the commotion was a young man, perhaps 16 or 17 years old. His clothes were dusty and travel-worn. His face was streaked with tears. And spread before him on the merchant's table was a small collection of silk, perhaps a dozen bolts, nothing exceptional. The quality was middling at best. But the young man was arguing with the buyer, as if his life depended on it. Which Tahir realized as he listened, it did. The boy's story came out in fragments. His father was a merchant from Balkh. They had been traveling together, their first journey on the Silk Road. But in the mountains, the Pamirs, his father had fallen ill. Some sickness of the lungs that the altitude had made worse. By the time they reached Samarkand, his father could not rise from his bed. The medicines were expensive. The doctors were expensive. And now the boy was trying to sell their silk to pay for treatment. But the buyer was offering a fraction of its value, taking advantage of the boy's desperation, knowing that he had no choice but to accept. Tahir watched the negotiation, watched the buyer's cold smile, watched the boy's increasing desperation. And he remembered. He remembered being that boy, standing in a courtyard in Kashgar, learning that his family was in danger. feeling the weight of responsibility settle onto shoulders that were not ready for it. He remembered the merchants in Dunhuang who had helped him, who had given him fair deals even when they could have taken advantage, who had seen a young man struggling and chosen to be decent. He remembered Hassan, frozen in the snow, a young man who would never get the chance to become whatever he might have been. And he made a decision. I will buy the silk. The buyer turned, annoyed at the interruption. This negotiation is not your concern. It is now. I will pay fair market value. Name your lowest acceptable price. He said this to the boy, not to the buyer. The boy stared at him with wide, uncomprehending eyes. Fair market value. What it would sell for if you were not desperate. What a decent buyer would pay. The boy named a price. It was reasonable, perhaps even slightly high given the quality of the silk, but Tahir did not haggle. Done. He counted out the coins, pressed them into the boy's hands. The boy stared at the money as if it might disappear. Why, he asked, you do not know me, you owe me nothing. Tahir thought about the question, thought about all the answers he could give. Because I was you once. Because someone helped me when they did not have to. Because the road is hard enough without people making it harder. Because I watched a man die in the mountains, and it reminded me that we are all just one piece of bad luck away from disaster. But what he said was simpler. Because it is the right thing to do. The boy stared at him for a long moment. Then he bowed, deeply, formally, in the manner of a son thanking an elder. I will remember this, he said. When I am established, when I have the means, I will do the same for another. I swear it. Good, Tahir said. That is how it should be. He walked away before the boy could thank him further. He did not want thanks. He had not done it for thanks. He had done it because the road had taught him what kind of man he wanted to be. And that man did not walk past suffering when he had the power to help. Tahir left Samarkand 3 days later. He had lingered longer than necessary, walking the streets one last time, visiting the great Registan Square where the blue-tiled madrasas rose like monuments to human achievement, standing in the shadow of the Bibi Khanim Mosque, the largest mosque in the Islamic world, and feeling the weight of centuries pressing down. He had come here as a destination, as a goal, as the end point of a journey. But standing in the heart of this impossible city, he realized that Samarkand was not an ending. It was a crossroads. Roads led out from here in every direction, west to Persia and beyond, south to India, north to the steppes, east back the way he had come to China and the rising sun. The Silk Road did not end in Samarkand. It merely paused here, caught its breath, and continued on. And so would he. He joined a caravan heading east, smaller than the one he had traveled with before. Mostly merchants returning to Kashgar and beyond, their Western goods sold, their purses heavy with profit. The return journey would be faster. They would push hard to cross the Pamirs before the winter snows closed the passes for good. If the weather held, they might make Kashgar in 6 weeks. If the weather held, the return crossing of the Pamirs was both easier and harder than the first. Easier because Tahir knew what to expect. He knew the rhythm of altitude sickness, the bone-deep cold of the high camps, the terror of the narrow passes. He had faced these things once and survived. That knowledge gave him a confidence that had not been there before. Harder because this time, he knew the cost. Every time they passed a stone cairn marking where a traveler had fallen, he thought of Hassan. Every time the wind picked up and the snow began to swirl, he felt the fear return. Not the blind panic of the first crossing, but a deeper, more knowing fear. The fear of a man who understood exactly what could go wrong. But they made it through. The weather held. The passes remained open. The caravan descended from the roof of the world without losing a single member. And then, finally, the mountains were behind them. Ahead lay the familiar territory of the eastern approach to Kashgar, hills giving way to desert. Desert giving way to the oasis towns that marked the western edge of the Taklamakan. They crossed the desert in early spring. The sand was not as hot as it had been on his first crossing. The wind was not as fierce. The oases were full, their springs bubbling with snowmelt from the distant mountains. It was almost pleasant. Almost. Tahir still felt the weight of the place, still remembered the 3 days without water. still looked at every dune with respect bordering on fear. But he was not the same man who had entered this desert nearly a year ago. That man had been terrified, uncertain, barely holding himself together. This man walked with confidence, moved with purpose, looked at the desert not as an enemy to be feared, but as a challenge already conquered. The sea of death was still deadly, but it had already given him its worst, and he had survived. Kashgar appeared on a morning in late spring. The caravan crested a rise, and there it was, the walls catching the early light, the minarets rising above the rooftops, the eastern gate standing open, welcoming travelers home. Home. The word struck Tahir with unexpected force. He had been gone for nearly 10 months, had traveled further than most people travel in their entire lives, had seen wonders and horrors, had been transformed in ways he was still discovering. And now he was home. He felt tears forming in his eyes, blinked them away, steadied himself. There would be time for emotion later. For now, he had one more task to complete. He had to tell his father that he had succeeded. Tahir did not go directly to his family home. Instead, he stopped first at the money changer's office, converted his letter of credit from Samarkand into local currency and goods, gold coins and silver, letters of credit accepted by the merchants of Kashgar, enough wealth to secure his family's future for years. He had a portion of it loaded onto a handcart, covered with a cloth, pushed through the familiar streets of his hometown toward his father's house. The streets had not changed. The same vendors called out the same wares, the same smells of cooking meat and fresh bread and animal dung and human sweat, the same sounds of commerce and conversation and life. But Tahir saw it differently now. He saw the connections, the threads that tied this bazaar to others across the world, the silk that would travel west, the spices that had traveled east, the endless flow of goods and ideas that made cities like Kashgar possible. He saw the people, the merchants who had walked roads like the one he had walked, the porters and drivers and guards who made the caravans move, the families who waited at home, wondering if their loved ones would return. He saw, for the first time, how small his world had been before, and how much larger it had become. His father was sitting in the courtyard when Tahir walked through the gate. Mahmud had aged. The months of worry had carved new lines into his face. His hair was whiter than Tahir remembered. His shoulders seemed to slump under an invisible weight. But when he looked up and saw his son standing in the gate, pushing a handcart covered with cloth, that weight fell away. Tahir. It was barely a whisper, the voice of a man who cannot believe what his eyes are showing him. I am home, father. Mahmud tried to rise, fumbled for his crutch, nearly fell. Tahir crossed the courtyard in quick strides and caught him, held him, felt his father's frail body shaking against his own. You came back, Mahmud said. I prayed every day. Every day I asked God to bring you home, and here you are. Here I am. They held each other for a long moment, father and son, the crippled merchant who could no longer walk the roads, and the young man who had walked them in his place. When they finally separated, Mahmud looked at the handcart. What is that? Tahir pulled back the cloth. The gold gleamed in the morning sun. Stacks of coins, letters of credit, the physical manifestation of 8 months of suffering and success. Mahmud stared at it. His mouth moved, but no words came out. The debts are paid, Tahir said. I settled them before coming here. The business is secure. There is enough here to rebuild, to expand, to hire other young men to walk the roads while you manage things from home. How much? Tahir told him. Mahmud sat down heavily. His crutch clattered to the ground. He put his face in his hands. At first, Tahir thought he was crying from happiness. Then he realized it was something else. Relief, bone-deep, overwhelming relief. The release of fear that had been building for years, the fear of failure, of leaving his children with nothing, of dying before he could set things right. All of that weight lifting at once. You saved us, Mahmud said when he could finally speak. I sent you out there hoping you might earn enough to slow our decline, and you saved us. We saved us, Tahir said. You taught me, you prepared me. You gave me the ring that kept me going when I wanted to stop. He held up his hand. The silver ring, worn smooth by generations of merchants, caught the light. This brought me home. Mahmud reached out and touched the ring. His father's ring, his grandfather's ring. The ring that had crossed this same desert and these same mountains decades ago, when Mahmud himself was young. "No," he said softly. "You brought yourself home. The ring is just silver. You are the one who walked the road. You are the one who survived." He looked up at his son, really looked, taking in the changes. The sun-darkened skin, the harder eyes, the new confidence in posture and movement. "You are different." "Yes." "The road changed you." "Yes." Tell me everything." Tahir smiled. "It would take days to tell everything." "Then we have days, weeks, years." Mahmud gestured toward the house. "Your sister is inside. She has not stopped talking about you since you left. Go to her. Let her cry and scream and tell you how worried she was. And then, tonight after dinner, you will begin the story. And if the story takes many nights to tell, then it will take many nights. I have nowhere else to be." Tahir nodded. He helped his father up, handed him his crutch. Together, they walked toward the house where Fatima was waiting. The days that followed were a blur of reunion and rest, and slowly returning to normal life. Fatima had indeed cried and screamed and told Tahir in great detail how worried she had been. Then she had hit him on the arm and told him he was never allowed to leave again. Then she had hugged him so tightly he could barely breathe. The servants prepared feasts. The neighbors came to pay their respects. Word spread through Kashgar that young Tahir had returned from the Silk Road with a fortune. And suddenly, the household that had been avoiding creditors was receiving invitations to dinners and parties. Through it all, Tahir told his story. Not all at once, not in a single sitting. But night after night, sitting in the courtyard with his father and sister, he recounted the journey. He told them about the Taklamakan, the sandstorm that had swallowed the sky, the 3 days without water, the dead oasis that should have killed them all. He told them about Dunhuang, the Magao caves, and the 700 years of pilgrims who had carved their faith into stone, the silk markets, and the tea ceremony negotiations. The first time he had made a deal entirely on his own. He told them about the return crossing, the growing confidence, the desert that was still dangerous but no longer unknown. He told them about the Pamirs, the cold that seeped into your bones, the air that refused to fill your lungs, the narrow passes where one wrong step meant death. He told them about Hassan. This was the hardest part, describing the storm, the moment when Yusuf went back out into the blizzard, the frozen body they had found, the cairn of stones that was the only grave the mountains would allow. Fatima wept. Mahmud closed his eyes and nodded slowly, remembering companions of his own who had not made it home. And Tahir told them about Samarkand, the city of blue domes, the bazaars that were worlds unto themselves, the deals that had transformed their family's future. He told them about the boy with the sick father, about the choice he had made, about the way it had felt to help someone simply because it was right. This part made Mahmud smile. "That is the merchant I hoped you would become," he said. "Not just a man who makes profit, but a man who knows when profit is not the most important thing." "The road taught me that," Tahir said. "Or maybe it just showed me what was already inside." Perhaps both. Weeks passed, spring turned toward summer. Life in Kashgar settled into new patterns. Mahmud, freed from the pressure of debt, began planning again, rebuilding the business, training Tahir in the aspects of trade that could only be learned at home. The accounting, the contracts, the relationships with local suppliers and buyers. Tahir threw himself into this work. There was satisfaction in it, in using what he had learned, in building something that would last. But sometimes, in the evenings, he would climb to the roof of their house and look west. Toward the mountains he had crossed, toward the city he had reached, toward the road that had changed him. He knew he would walk it again, not immediately, not this year, but someday. The road was in his blood now, the need to see what lay beyond the horizon, the hunger for wonders he had not yet imagined. Samarkand was not the end. He understood that now. It was just a waypoint, one stop on a journey that had no final destination. There were roads leading south to India, where spices grew in abundance and elephants carried goods through mountain passes. Roads leading north to the steppes, where nomads herded horses across endless grasslands. Roads leading west to Persia and Arabia and the distant legends of Europe. He would walk some of those roads, maybe all of them, in time. But for now, he was content to be home. To be with his father and his sister. To help rebuild what they had almost lost. To tell his story to anyone who wanted to hear it. And to remember. The desert that had nearly killed him. The mountains that had tested everything he had. The city of blue domes that had rewarded his suffering with wealth beyond his dreams. The boy who had walked out of Kashgar's eastern gate nearly a year ago, terrified and uncertain and completely unprepared for what lay ahead. And the man who had walked back in, forged by the road into something harder and wiser and more complete. One evening, as the sun set over Kashgar and the call to prayer echoed from the minarets, Tahir sat alone in the courtyard. He was holding the silver ring, turning it over in his fingers, tracing the Arabic inscription on the inside of the band. His grandfather had worn this ring, had walked the same roads, had seen the same wonders and faced the same terrors. His father had worn it after, until the injury that ended his traveling days. And now it was his. A circle of silver, a connection to the past, a promise to the future. He thought about everything the ring had witnessed, everything it would witness still. The generations of merchants who would wear it if he had children of his own. The roads they would walk, the stories they would carry home. The Silk Road was not just a trade route. It was a thread connecting civilizations, a current carrying ideas and art and faith across the world, a river of human experience flowing through the centuries. And now Tahir was part of it. One merchant among thousands, one story among millions, one small thread in a tapestry that had been weaving for longer than anyone could remember. But it was his thread, his story, his place in the great flow. And that, he realized, was enough. More than enough. It was everything. The stars came out over Kashgar, the same stars that had guided caravans for centuries, that would guide them for centuries more. Somewhere out there, in cities and deserts and mountains, other merchants were beginning their own journeys, leaving their homes for the first time, facing fears they had never imagined, learning lessons that could only be learned on the road. Some of them would succeed, some would fail, some would come home rich, some would not come home at all. That was the way of it, the eternal bargain of the Silk Road. Risk everything for the chance at fortune. Walk through hell for the possibility of heaven. Tahir had made that bargain, had walked that road, had earned his place among those who attempted the impossible and survived. And now, sitting in the courtyard of his family home, surrounded by the wealth and love and peace that the journey had brought him, he understood something he had not understood before. The destination was never the point. The road was the point. The walking itself, the lessons learned, the person you became along the way. Samarkand would still be there tomorrow, and the day after, and 1,000 years from now, cities endured. But the journey, the specific journey of a specific person at a specific moment in time, the fears faced and the wonders witnessed and the transformation earned. That was once and only. That could never be repeated. And that was what made it precious. Tahir looked up at the stars. He thought about the boy who had left this courtyard 10 months ago. He thought about the man who had returned. And he smiled. The road had been long, but he had walked it. And he was home.
And so Tahir's journey ends. Not with a bang, not with a battle, but with a young man sitting in his family's courtyard looking up at the stars, understanding at last what the road had given him. He had left home as a boy, frightened and uncertain, playing at being a merchant because his family needed him to be one. He returned as something else, a man who had crossed the sea of death, who had seen the caves of 1,000 Buddhas, who had climbed the roof of the world, who had stood in the city of blue domes and sold silk for fortunes. A man who had watched another man die and carried that weight without being crushed by it. A man who had chosen to help a stranger because the road had taught him what kind of person he wanted to be. This was the Silk Road, not just a trade route, not just a path across the map, but a crucible, a forge, a place where ordinary people became extraordinary by surviving what it threw at them. For 1,000 years, merchants walked these roads. For 1,000 years, they left their homes and crossed deserts and mountains and came back changed. Their stories are mostly lost now, the names forgotten, the individuals dissolved into the great flow of history. But they were real. Every one of them. Young men and women who had never traveled before, who were terrified and uncertain and far from home, who kept walking anyway because that was all they could do. Tahir's story is made up, but it is also true in the ways that matter, true to what countless real merchants must have experienced, true to the fear and the wonder and the transformation. I hope his journey has meant something to you. I hope it has shown you something about the world that used to be, about the incredible courage of ordinary people, about what humans are capable of when they are pushed beyond what they thought they could endure. And I hope maybe it has shown you something about yourself. Because we all have roads to walk, deserts to cross, mountains to climb, moments when we want to give up and don't know if we can keep going. The destination is never the point. The road is the point. The walking itself. Thank you for walking this one with Tahir. Thank you for listening. This has been the Whispering Tome. And this particular story is now complete. But there are always more stories, more whispers from the past, more journeys waiting to be told. Until next time, take care of yourself. And keep walking. Whatever road you are on, keep walking.